So you've got Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State, who I look at and say that's pretty clearly the three best teams in college football right now. Alabama looked a little bit more mortal, but we also don't get a lot of early season true road games against Power 5 teams for Nick Saban in the non-conference. So there's also some of that. It's a bit of a different location than they're used to. But if we're going to assume, and I'll ask you right now, do you think those are the three best teams in college football right now?
Yes, I think Georgia's clearly one, and then those other two are the others. Yes.
So who's the fourth now?
Now, so they haven't played anybody, and we want to make Michigan the fourth because we saw them last year there, and we think that they've now got the dynamic quarterback it's going to take. I said going into the season it was going to be Clemson because we were going to see a 16-pound lighter DJ Uiagalelei come out and look lights out, and he doesn't. I think the door is propped open for USC to come out and just kind of get their way there. But I also think that that's a wild amount of like the leap from who USC is playing to actually good football teams is there's a gap there, right? So I don't know that I love anybody as a number 4 team right now in a dominant way. Like everybody's trying to take advantage of the opportunity, but even if we look at Florida, like as good as we wanted to make Florida this great team one week, and then Kentucky takes it to them the next. So I think the SEC is going to beat each other up. Nobody's going to come out of there with it. The best shot is for USC, but also USC is going to get to the playoff and get killed by everybody else because they're not playing anybody in the Pac-12.
I'll be very interested. To me, the only game that is going to tell us much about USC is when they play Utah, because they're built in places that can still make SC uncomfortable. Because right now, the SC defense isn't necessarily there. The offense has made massive improvements. It's everything we expected from Lincoln Riley coming right over there. But that's going to be the one. If they can go out there and they can manage to handle Utah and what they pose as a threat on both sides of the ball, competent quarterback in Cam Rising, 2 really good tight ends on offense, and Dalton Kincaid and Brant Keithy, then you're going to learn a little bit about what that group is capable of. The one I'm interested in, and I've got their game on radio in 2 weekends, is Oklahoma. Because, again, early season, we're still trying to learn all about these teams. But so far, Brent Venables, first-time head coach, has come in here, got him off 2-0. Things have looked good with Dylan Gabriel. And that's a team that I feel like in the Big 12 of this year, where we just saw Baylor have that setback against BYU, Oklahoma State is lurking and has a veteran quarterback and a defensive front that's full of dudes that have played a lot of football. Oklahoma's the one that always still has had so much top-end talent and has usually been able to control the line of scrimmage. That's waned a little bit in recent years, but if they're getting competent quarterback play again, and now they get the Brent Venables defensive bump, then things could get interesting.
Yeah, I actually like that call a lot. Venables gets so much benefit of the doubt for who he is defensively, but I don't want to shit on Dylan Gabriel either in what he means in this equation, because having some experience at quarterback coming into there, I think matters a lot, right? And there is a moment where Oklahoma probably deserves some of that, especially knowing that the Big 12 is going to have, like you mentioned, Oklahoma State's got playmakers. So I want to give Oklahoma State some credit. Also, Texas did what Texas did against Alabama. So the question is any of that, like, is Quinn Ewers really going to bring Texas to the spot where they're elite? If that's the case, then Oklahoma actually gets enough yellow brick road in front of them to justify being in that conversation. That I think part of the equation too. So actually, I don't mind that call by you at all. I didn't really think Oklahoma at the top, but it makes a lot of sense. And if Brent Venables does that quickly, my God, like that's the one thing too. I mentioned DJ Uiagalelei that we've slept on a little bit from Clemson not being good enough, but Clemson also lost both of their coordinators. And we're used to Alabama being able to restock all the time. If Venables goes to Oklahoma and absolutely crushes it, then are we going to start looking around and saying, you better restock faster if you're going to be Clemson? It's an interesting line.
Clemson's so strange, man, because you're right. And with Clemson, the difference was they promoted internally, where Alabama, we usually see Nick Saban go and pluck some former NFL, offensive coordinator, or any of the number of retread coaches that end up at the Nick Saban School of Wayward Boys in the analyst chairs for them. It's just so different. And with Clemson, the same question arises about the schedule for them and what this ends up look like. Before, I thought, after the Ohio State game, Notre Dame could be an interesting one for them. But now you're on the road against Sam Hartman's Wake Forest. You've got an NC State team coming up right after that beat you last year. Syracuse, they get it home, but this Syracuse team seems like it might have a little more shit to them than the one we had last week. And then you've got Miami and South Carolina to finish off the year. Like all of a sudden, it starts to read a little tougher when the offense isn't something you can count on nearly as much anymore. Now, this weekend, it'll be Louisiana Tech and all will be fine in the world. But as you start to look in that, Florida State even becomes the most October 15th against Florida State. If they are able to keep up their current trajectory with Jordan Travis and the way he's looked, I saw Roddy Jones over at the ACC Network saying there's a good argument that he's a top 5 quarterback in that league the way he's played so far. And the talent they've got on defense, that game could get pretty spicy on the road in Tallahassee.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Florida State because I reminded Pollock hosting College Football Live a few weeks ago, like everybody's sort of meh on Florida State at different times because I think people soured on Mike Norvell, who it doesn't take a brilliant person to realize that Norvell probably didn't handle the transition to Florida State as well as he should have. The other side of that is that we saw what Mike Norvell did at Memphis. And I think one of his best strengths at Memphis is he built a team that one year was completely relying on running the football and was able to crush you that way. And then the next year is like, hey, we're going to spread it out. We're going to throw the football. And he did it that way. And then it's like, we've got different talent. Mike Norvell has proven at Memphis that he will work the talent he has to the best of his ability. I thought that would translate to Florida State. It didn't in the beginning, but I also think that the sort of the way he handled the locker room in the beginning lost so much to the people that it made it even tougher for him to turn around and create who he's going to be as a coach. They snowball any momentum. I still believe that Mike Norvell is a very good head coach at the college football level. Yeah, I believe he's a difference-making coach when the talent is equal on both sides. So, you know, I like that Florida State conversation a lot, actually. I think I feel better about Norvell and where he stands today than I did 3 months ago, just because it feels like they're starting to put it together.
Yeah, the money had him locked in there, and that was why that was never a real conversation last year when people were freaking out and they were 0-3, 0-4, and then that season got off the rails quick. That team played hard as hell for him, though, man. I've said it a bunch of times. I had the game against Louisville last year where I think they went 0-3 or 0-4 for the first time since the 70s, and those dudes fought their asses off till late in that game, and those dudes were at practice really getting after it on a Friday when I got to go there and watch, and those are all the things that stick out when a team is still buying what this guy is selling and somehow laying it on the line, despite there not being real results to sink your teeth into. That's why week 1 was so big for them, is even if it's an LSU team that's not quite where people wanted it to be or expected it to be down there, it's still an LSU team that you essentially played a road game on in the dome down there and managed to pull it out. And that little bit of belief can go a long, long way with that. So it's, I think this weekend, after all the crazy last weekend, I'd imagine things calm down a little bit just because we've got fewer of those matchups. Hopefully the Sun Belt East will stop SEC Westing people for a week and just let us rest. But
Screw you, Mike.
Wild,
I want
man.
all the Sun Belt love. Give me 4 teams in the playoff that are all from the Sun Belt just to make Alabama fans' heads explode. Then suddenly they'll be like, automatic bids are a must.